everyone, CoralFish here. I wanted to invite you to watch this multi-author panel that was put together by David Downs and hosted at Oaksterdam University. Doug Fine, Clint Werner, Martin Lee, and Paul Armentano were joined together to speak about their experiences writing their individual books and also some hopes for the future of marijuana. I did miss some of the individual authors' words before the panel got all together, but I will be uploading some videos shortly and also a giveaway from Martin Lee, the author of Smoke Signals. The video is going to pick up right now into middle of Doug Fine's speech, but I do hope you guys enjoy what I could share. Thanks for watching.
He put it pretty well. He said, we acknowledge as a society that a glass of red wine in the evening after a tough day of dentistry or investment banking is health maintenance, and that health maintenance is the greatest way to reduce healthcare costs. The single greatest way is to not have to spend money on healthcare. And so things like, I'm not talking about even the resveratrol and stuff within the red wine, but more about things like relaxation, stress relief. So if we acknowledge that with cannabis, with red wine, why can we not acknowledge that with cannabis and call that medical as well? Because I do think it's important for us to seize the term. The reason we're all using the word cannabis these days is an identity thing that you see in all kinds of struggles, from gay rights to racial stuff. Is like we'll decide what we're going to call it, and that's why. And I'm not nearly the first one to say this. I don't ever use the term recreational. I think it's like for me, it's spiritual and health maintenance, not or social. I'm nothing wrong with social use, because social use of alcohol is also health maintenance in mind. So I just wanted to say that anytime somebody asks me that question, I first say, well, let me tell you about Bill Harney, the liver cancer patient who told me that his oncologist told him he was at 118 pounds from liver cancer and that he was going to die if he didn't go on you start using cannabis. And he had this great local source that was organically grown, one county up in Mendocino, and he was up to 155, and he said the plant saved my life. I can't believe what a miracle this plant was. And the feds raided his provider in Matt Cohen, denying the cancer patient. So I know it is legitimate, but anytime somebody questions that, I make the decision: am I going to give the liver cancer sob story or the it's not recreational, it's health maintenance story? And I'm not saying that my sort of talking points are the only ones or the right ones, but I'm saying it's important for us to reframe that debate, that it's all good. Prohibition is the problem, and cannabis isn't the problem, no matter what you call it.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the New York Times just return to that angle last week when they covered LA, and they're saying, medical's still a farce to some, or something along those lines.
Yeah, right. I saw that.
Clint, can you weigh in?
Well, at Normal, we talked about the claim that Dennis Perone made like 2 days or a day after the election of 215, the passage of that all use is medical use, and many of us cringed and wanted to slap him upside the head and say, chill, don't gloat, they could repeal this. But the science has come along and shown that all use has medical benefits. Pretty much, I might say not blunts, because you're getting tobacco and horrible synthetic chemicals from God knows where. That's not grape essence that they distill out of a plant and put in those blunts. It's an artificial hellish chemical. So, but really all use seems to have medical benefit, even if it's not dedicated as medical use. But what I get a lot of times when I'm trying to persuade people who are not of our ilk is the response, yes, but there's so much abuse of the system by young people, or something to that effect.
The New York Times.
And my response to that is, well, and I'll give this, Ethan Nadelman was the first one who sort of said this, I think, pretty well. Any young person who enjoys cannabis would be foolish not to get an approval if they can, because a lot of disease comes from stress. And there's really not much more in your life that's more stressful than being arrested and imprisoned. Arrested, whether you're imprisoned or not. I try to talk to people about what happens when someone's arrested. Their lives are turned upside down. They have an enormous expense of time and money for lawyers. The stress level, the worry, the concern, the sleepless nights, the misery. The whole thing feeds into a disease process. So I think prohibition is carcinogenic. and cannabis is anti-carcinogenic.
Martin, do you have anything to add?
You can speak on this subject for hours.
Yeah, we got to get going.
The recreational medical thing is almost like a hang-up, and it's kind of a leitmotif in smoke signals addressing this. But this, if you really look at the science, and if you even look at our own personal experience, the whole thing is it's a debate framed by the drug warriors.
Mm-hmm.
We need to reject this as a paradigm. We shouldn't be operating within this debate, and when they've set the terms.
It's not either or.
It's certainly not either or. Why can't we just sort of be intelligent about it and say, yeah, not everybody, every time someone smokes a joint, the intention is medical, but if someone smokes a joint, for quote-unquote recreational purposes, and someone's smoking it because it helps their multiple sclerosis spasms, the same receptors in the brain are being charged. The same enzyme imbalances in the body are being altered. The same, this is going on, and it's basically a healthy process. It's not harmful. We need to be aware. This is the proactivity again that Paul's been emphasizing is so important. We need to define the terms of the debate. And that's one thing I think with CBD we are in some ways able to do, to the extent that we can get that out there, because but all these things, and the political labels in the cannabis world are so amazing. I can't get over the fact here we have a situation, the coalition, so to speak, to legalize. Well, who's behind it? Libertarians that are calling for government regulation. Liberals who are for state rights. Growers who seem to have the same interest as cops, keeping it illegal, at least some, and I don't mean to be catty about that. But there's a lot, everybody's compass is demagnetized. Give sort of space for that, and realize we've got to set the terms of the debate here. Great question, of course, but it's one that it's a fascinating question.
Well, speaking of like defining terms, did I give you a chance to answer?
No, I'll be real brief.
Okay.
The plant doesn't differentiate. We do, but the plant itself does not. As Martin said, the plant's going to act on the same receptors, whether somebody's defining themselves as a patient or not. But I think, once again, terminology is really important. And I think a better word than medical at this point is therapeutic, because people define medical very narrowly. They know that when you're sick, you take medicine. So if you have somebody using cannabis for health maintenance or potentially preventively, I think people get skeptical because they say that's not medical. I like using the term therapeutic or supplemental. People take supplements because they want to stay healthy. They don't want to get sick. And I think cannabis has a role in that kind of maintenance. But when this debate first came about, that wasn't the way it was framed. There wasn't a whole lot of science pointing in that direction. But I think now there is, and I think we need to change our terminology. I think patient is a very narrowly defined term. I think medical is a fairly narrowly defined term, and I'd like to broaden those terms because I think the real practical application of cannabis and who's using cannabis expands far beyond the standard definitions of medical and patient.
Last week Oakland sued the feds to block the seizure of Harborside Health Center. And I was hoping to get each of you guys' reactions and if you have any sort of insight, if at all, as to whether or not that could work. Let's start with Paul this time.
I don't have a lot of insight. I can just say I commend the city of Oakland for not taking this action by the feds sitting down, and I think it really it underlies the importance of having strong local political connections, and that when we as a movement or individuals make those connections with the political establishment and are transparent about their actions, you'll see that you have political support, and we need to build that support. So I think it is a result of the fact that Harborside has been a very unique operation, very transparent, and engages in best practices, and recognize that they are part of the community, including the political community, and the political community has their back to the best they can.
Martin, do you have any idea in the histories of cities suing the U.S., the federal government over something like this?
I think this is unprecedented, and it's great for that reason. And a lot of what's happened since 2015, and I think looking back, 215 will be seen really as a revolution. In some ways, maybe what happens in Colorado, Washington, is sort of the tail end of that wave that broke. Maybe we'll see it that way. But a lot of the advances is, 2 steps forward, 1.5 steps back with the law, and there's been, when you look at the territories for the last 16 years, all total, the advances have been significant. The gains that have been cemented into law in California are significant. And what just happened with Oakland is unprecedented and significant, and it's great for Harborside. That's really great.
Seems like a good symbol, good politics, for the attorney. I think she's running for re-election. Clint?
I don't know what it means. I mean, I suspect it'll be dismissed.
Right.
The federal government has so much overweening power, and but I'm glad they did it. And I
Should
think,
San Francisco's city attorney do the same thing?
yeah, oh yeah, San Jose, but wait for that.
Yeah, or Richmond.
The one thing I think in terms of this is, if you're a patient, you need to write Melinda Hagg a letter and bully her about this. Say, why the hell are you screwing with my life? Donald did, my partner. He wrote a letter and said, where are my patients who are fighting cancer? They go to Harborside or Spark or wherever, and they get medicines that don't necessarily get them high, that they can use for the benefits. And they can get tinctures, or they can get pills, or they can get whatever, CBD containing medicines. He says, dealers aren't carrying that. And the stoners are going to get the weed, she's not inhibiting the stoners from getting weed. We've got networks, and it's just really making it hard on patients. And I think patients should write letters, and doctors who have cancer patients and AIDS patients and MS, etc. patients should be writing her and sort of humiliating her morally, asking her, who the hell raised you? Who gave you these values that made you such a creepy, cruddy person?
So briefly on this terrific Oakland decision, it's an example for me on why the local nuances and sometimes infighting or whatever it is don't really matter bigger picture, because this Oakland lawsuit was covered prominently in the New York Times, and not to make it the be-all end-all of media coverage and public opinion, especially anymore, but just to keep it simple, on the same issue that they have, New York Times today ran a huge front-page expose on abuses in the DEA's efforts in Latin America and elsewhere.
Oh, wow.
The rhetoric on it is extremely important, and knowing that and glowing from it from reading it in my hotel this morning, I then went and did a panel over in San Francisco where the author next to me said, we were talking about it, and he said, what's the name of the elected official that sort of was behind it? Right, said blatant Parker election move, cynical election move, and I just said, so what? I loved seeing it in the New York Times. Same thing with problems in Washington's ballot initiative. So what, I think, at this point. I wish it were perfect, but that's not how it works. Quick point on seizing the debate and not playing to the drug warriors. What I've been trying to do, and I'm interested to hear what people's take is on this, either later or email me or whatever. Most people seem to think it's a decent tactic, but at least one person that I know and love has criticized it. What I'm trying to do is not even throw study for study at the drug warriors when I'm debating them. They're just, at one point a drug warrior came to me and said, this Columbia study said teen use is up in medical states, and I came back and said, yeah, but a Brown study said it's down, and he said, yeah, but that Brown study wasn't peer reviewed. And I was like, dude, they're both Ivy League schools. Come on, give it a break. So I'm just not doing that anymore in my duels. I'm completely not even acknowledging the legitimacy of somebody making this kind of arguments. And I'm strictly making all the social, health, and economic argument, basically ignoring them and saying you don't deserve to be on this podium. And so I'm interested in what people think about the effectiveness of that strategy. And for me, effectiveness means convincing people theoretically in that 44% that are not yet on board for fully ending cannabis prohibition.
Well, we've gone like 90 minutes. I think everybody might need to stretch their legs or use the restroom or whatever. So let's take a break here and you can follow up with the authors.
Thank you so so much for watching. I will have links on my website of where you can find these books available for sale. And I always recommend you guys do your own research. Read up. Be able to share all of the facts that you've seen in these videos or you've heard elsewhere. Stay high, you guys.